you've never seen space like this. You've never seen behind the scenes. That's exactly what the film's about. It's all about what happens behind the scenes.
That was Ross Kauffman, an Oscar-winning filmmaker, and he's talking about the brand new HBO documentary Wild Wild Space. But this film is actually not about the original suspects you probably are expecting to hear about. While SpaceX is of course referenced to in this documentary, this is chronicling the intense rivalry between Chris Kemp and Peter Beck of Astra and Rocket Lab respectively. Unfortunately, this video will be demonetized by playing this trailer, but I think that you need to see the trailer to show you why you need to watch this documentary.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
You've heard about the billionaire space race.
Shit.
This isn't that movie. We're in the midst of a revolution in space. It's like the Wild West.
The era of governments controlling this stuff is over.
At Astra Space, I run a secret rocket company.
Chris is this living embodiment of Silicon Valley.
I'm a scientist and he is a capitalist.
We're trying to build NASA at 1/1,000,000th the budget. And people take this shit really seriously, right?
If you're declaring to the world that you have a product that works, it better bloody work. No, I started Rocket Lab in 2006.
You could not have a more unlikely background for starting a rocket company.
No university education, no aerospace background. Fuck it, let's start a company.
Peter's rocket is a very high-performance machine, but it's expensive to build.
We often get accused of building Ferraris.
We're more like a Ford, a much more high-volume product. If Peter's not right, Peter loses. If I'm not right, I adapt. We hit something. Fuck.
I'm not built to build shit.
I'm gonna fucking crucify him.
The fabric of our civilization runs on satellites.
There is a lot of money to be made up there.
Space is now open for business.
Nothing's riding on this, except things like our right to privacy.
There are commercial companies that have nothing to do with governments snapping pictures day after day.
And the power of the world falling into the wrong hands.
So now you have thousands of satellites which themselves are potentially weapons.
And whoever controls space may very well control the future of humanity.
If you've followed any of the journey of SpaceX, you know that creating a rocket startup is hard and it's even harder to get into orbit. But seeing behind the scenes of Rocket Lab from the ground in New Zealand and also the trials and tribulations of Astra, along with Planet and how their utopian vision for creating an image of the Earth every single day is turning out to have some nefarious purposes.
You know, we spent years making this film. It's really exciting. And your space community knows a lot more about this going into it than I ever did.
Yeah.
Going into it, I didn't know anything about space. So I'm sure it'll be a fun ride for everybody.
I mean, this is, well, I am exceptionally giddy. This is a result of many years of work in a project that had as many ups and downs as a rocket startup along the way. And so just the fact that it's actually gonna appear on HBO is a dream come true. Ross he's a Academy Award winning director and is used to all this stuff, but this is my first big film, and so I couldn't be more thrilled. And I think, just for your audience, even for space aficionados, I think there's gonna be you've never had a camera in the rooms for some of the things that happen in this film in like the history of the space industry. And so I think it's gonna be exciting. I think it's also gonna be a lot funnier than people imagine. We did a screening in Washington DC and people were laughing almost the entire 90 minutes throughout the movie, and so it's got a lot of drama and it's funnier than I think most documentaries are.
I can't believe that my channel is over 100,000 subscribers. Yeah, I'm really proud to have that plaque in my office, and that means that more people are getting to know Ellie in space, and some people want to know me a little too much. Have you ever Googled yourself? Yeah, sometimes I Google Ellie in space and the searches are a little strange. I also found that there's a Reddit group dedicated to moi, which is actually kind of creepy. So with more exposure on the internet, I really need to keep my information safe. That's why for the past few months, I've been using Delete Me, and they just completed their 3rd report. So since February, 51 total listings have been removed. There are 36 data brokers with my personal info, and they've reviewed almost 5,000 listings to make sure that my information, like my address, my cell phone, my email, other personal information, is not on the internet. Sometimes these things leak, and Google yourself, you may be surprised by what you find, and maybe not in a good way. So how does Delete Me scrub your data? Well, here's how it works. Delete Me will submit removals from the data brokers which they find your information, and you get a privacy report showing each of the data brokers they've scanned, what they found, and what they're doing to remove your data. After they've submitted each opt-out, their privacy advisors go back and check each source again to make sure the information has actually been removed. And some listings will be gone more quickly than others. Slower data brokers can take weeks to honor requests. But that's why Delete Me runs multiple reports throughout the year. Remember, even after removals are complete, Google can take additional time to remove results from its search cache. New data brokers will be added to Delete Me's list as they appear, and they will submit opt-out removals from my personal information to the new ones. That's why a membership can be so beneficial, and you might want to even get your family members involved because a lot of them are probably linked to you. So Delete Me just did a scan in June, and they're going to be doing another one in August of this year. That'll be 4 reports in just 2024. I personally trust Delete Me, and I feel much more secure knowing that my personal info won't be subjected to threats of harassment, identity theft, or even stalking. So you can get 20% off Delete Me's US consumer plans by going to joindeleteme.com/Ellie20. So use promo code Ellie20 to save 20% at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/Ellie20, code Ellie20. Thanks to Delete Me for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back into it. A lot of this documentary is based on the book When the Heavens Went on Sale by Ashlee Vance, who is a New York Times best-selling author and who also wrote a biography about Elon Musk. While Ashlee was still writing the book, he linked up with Ross Kauffman and they decided to start a documentary. Ashlee already had 250 hours worth of film under his belt when Ross came on in about 2022. Ashlee, of course, this is based on your book, correct?
It's inspired by the book, and there's definitely some overlap with some of the main characters in the book, which is out in paperback today. But yeah, I mean, I think, the book started me on this journey and being interested in this set of characters. I had no idea how to actually turn this into a film, and Ross, brought both all this expertise and vision, but also I think fresh eyes to all this. I had been immersed in this world for too many years, you might argue, and it gets hard to tell sort of what makes sense for a mainstream audience. You lose a lot of perspective, and so Ross was just this incredible partner to see how he did his work and approach this. And so he kind of, I think it's fair to say, focused on a couple of the characters from the book and sort of the heart of some of the friendships that are in the book.
It's inspired by Ashlee's book, and what I loved about Ashlee's book was its tone. It's irreverent, sardonic, fun, playful, intense, extremely well researched, and when I read the book and talked to Ashlee, I mean, we just got along like that, and I got the tone of the book, and I was thinking, how are we going to infuse this tone into the film? And the footage had some of that, but it was like, how do we really drive this home? And that was a huge part of the fun for us, is just trying to really capture that playful nature and the insanity of this business. I don't think it's ever been seen on a film before like this.
Yeah, I was going to say, Ashlee, I mean, we've had some overlap now with the people we've interviewed, but Ross, for someone, it sounds like you weren't that familiar with what was going on in the space industry. Was this hard to sort of get on board with? I
mean, most subjects that I take on, I don't know much about. and that's kind of the fun of it. You kind of like very quickly become really well versed, and you get up to speed on what's going on. Yeah, I didn't know anything about space. Followed it very loosely, like most people out there. And it's really, for me, it's really kind of one of the things I do is like I come at it from the audiences, the wider general public audience's point of view.
And so, the three main players that you guys are highlighting, Astra, Rocket Lab, and then Planet. And it's interesting, I was sort of more familiar with Astra in recent times. So it was cool to see sort of their beginnings. And I don't want to give too much away, but, you've been working on this for 6 years.
Yeah, and full credit to Chris Kemp for. We had a conversation kind of right. I'd heard rumors about Astra. Somebody said, "Oh, there's this secret rocket company based in San Francisco," and I sort of caught wind of it. I'd known Chris Kemp from many years back when he used to work at NASA Ames, actually, and then did a cloud computing startup. And anyway, Chris and I touched base in the very earliest days of Astra, and one of the things that made this film possible, and I think some people give Chris a little grief about because Astra's had its struggles, but I think was a very courageous decision. He said, "Look, I don't know which way this thing's going to go, but if you would like to follow what it's like to see a rocket company get made from scratch, you can tell the real story, no matter how this ends up." And there's almost nobody, there's not many people that would have the courage to do that. And I think it's we're lucky because you don't usually get to have a camera in these rooms or to be there when it's the first 5 people trying to make this engine work for the first time. And so this is stuff we don't usually get to see. It's real, and I just think it's a blessing that we were able to do that.
As Ashlee and Ross both stated in our live stream, things are just getting started. If I had the budget and team, I would love to make my own documentary about the commercial space race. It's obviously a very exciting time to be alive, and it's nice to see other companies get the spotlight. Obviously, I love SpaceX and what they're doing, but there are a lot of other companies trying to do similar things, including Rocket Lab, which is pretty quickly catching up. So, I'm a full-time space journalist. There's constantly things going on in the industry. It's like the news cycle never stops. How did you know really when to put down the pen or the camera, so to speak?
Films aren't finished. They're just stopped. At a certain point, you have to say, all right, this film could keep going today. Yeah. It's pretty incredible. So, the story can keep going. But at a certain point, we thought, all right, this is where we're going to end. And it's really fascinating because I think, the best, it's a little grandiose, but the best endings are new beginnings a lot of the time. And I think this film is a perfect example of that. We're just at the beginning of this whole journey in space.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I totally agree. The book was the same sort of blessing and curse. It's like, where do you kind of stop? I think some of the stuff is just so exciting and then important that it felt to me like this needs to get out in the world, just because I don't think the public pays a lot of attention to really what's happening in commercial space. And it's important that lots of people have voices on this. I tend to be quite optimistic and sort of hope for the best on all this stuff. I just think the public, the worst thing that could possibly happen is that we repeat all the mistakes that we've made on Earth in space. And as we know, humans have a tendency to do just that every time they enter a new area that is a kind of new playground. And so anyway, it just felt like a good time to get some of this out and have the conversation around this, what's going on.
Yeah, talk about maybe, what was the hardest part for both of you guys making this documentary?
The hardest part for me was I had no idea what I was doing, and I started out sort of raising some money to go do this. Had some things go sideways, ran out of money, pitched it, got shot down a bunch of times, and then Ross arrived kind of like a miracle for me, really, because I'd been at this for a long time and didn't really know what I was doing and didn't know how to contain and shape the story or where to go. And so anyway, this for me, this is the closest thing I've ever had to like actually being at a startup where I was like feeling what Astra in particular was kind of going through as I was trying to get this thing going. And so it actually gave me a lot of sympathy really for anyone who tries to do a project like this. Ross has made a bunch of documentaries, and I think probably each one has its own dramatic story behind it. But this is the first time I went through something like that.
Are you gonna be okay?
I'm much better now.
No, it's always a wild ride, and I mean, for me, I love the relationships that I'm able to form and build with, not only my colleagues, the people I'm making the films with, but the people in the film, and really getting to know Chris Kemp and Robbie Shingler and Will Marshall and Pete Warden and Peter Beck, and it's a beautiful thing that I can go and meet these people that I would never ever in a million years get to meet and get to really know. So that to me is really kind of precious, and it's also hard. It's hard going in. Ashlee has a relationship with these people, and then I sort of take the reins, and for 2 years I'm working with them, and through some of the toughest times, for Chris and for some of the other companies, and I give Chris Kemp, as I said, a lot of credit for opening up and being really just sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's what I love. That's what I love, is just really getting into that and really understanding and working with people.
But it's hard when you're trying to film, because usually you go into a rocket company and they're like, you can only point your camera at this one particular spot in this room. And that was never going to work for the type of documentary we were going to tell. And so whether it's Chris Kemp, Peter Beck, all of their communications staff who were incredible, Planet, same thing, just giving us the trust that we would do the right thing in the end made a huge difference.
Yeah, there's a reason I interviewed Elon in the SpaceX lobby, because
Yeah.
it's already, pre-approved. Who do you want to see wild space the most?
Oh, I mean, I love that the space community has already, we put the trailer up on Twitter, and I could see all my space friends and space friends I didn't know I knew I had rushed to it. But I think obviously this was made for people like that, but I really hope the general public watches this. Anytime I do anything, I keep my sister-in-law in mind. She's a doctor. She has no interest in technology, but she's a educated, smart, lovely person who has no interest in most of the things I have a deep interest in. And I just always think if I could somehow tell the story well enough that it appeals to her, that's kind of, then I've maybe done my job, and that it might get escape velocity, get past max Q to the wider audience.
I'm sitting here smiling because my person is my brother. He's not like necessarily a film guru. He doesn't like do deep dives into documentaries necessarily. So he's my guy who I'm like, if I can reach him and he loves the film and he really gets all of his friends to watch it, I know I've preached beyond the choir. And that's really, I just love the fact that I've had some pretty good luck with some of my films, that they really went beyond the immediate obvious audience to a huge general audience. And I think this film will get out there. I'm really excited by it.
Yeah, and I think you do a great job of bringing it down to earth, so to speak, so that people that aren't familiar with the space industry at all can kind of get a grasp and get a sense of what's going on. Because man, you guys are right. It's just the beginning, and that's part of the reason why I quit my full-time job to cover this, because we're just getting started.
Absolutely, and it feels like a historical document to me in some ways, and so I really hope people appreciate that that we had cameras there when all this stuff was going on at this moment in time, and hopefully we're able to tell it in an entertaining way.
Now, while I normally cover what's going on with Starship and interview some interesting people on my channel, like Jonathan McDowell, who, by the way, is featured in this documentary, I thought that you might be interested in hearing from the people behind the scenes of this documentary, because it is such an exciting moment to capture in history. If you want to watch the full live stream, it's on my channel, so I've condensed most of this interview for this video. But thank you so much to Ashlee and Ross for coming onto my channel. And again, this video isn't monetized because I just have to play the trailer, and so unfortunately I get a copyright issue with that, but I feel like it's worth playing the trailer. By the way, before you go in the comments and say, well, isn't this going to affect your channel? It does not affect my channel. This is not a copyright strike. It just means that the video cannot be monetized. I hope that you enjoyed watching this and enjoyed hearing from people very interested in telling the story of space. And thank you so much for supporting my channel, Ellie in Space. If you guys enjoyed this video and all of my Starship coverage, please subscribe to Ellie in Space. It's completely free, and that way you won't miss any future videos. If you want to take it a step further, please consider signing up for my Patreon. YouTube revenue can be very unpredictable and hit or miss, and you guys on my Patreon are why I'm able to take these trips and help me experience the life that I'm very thankful to live down here at Starbase and many of the other places that I've gone to report for the channel and the places that I'll be going in the future.